Hello and welcome to My Man the Maker's unboxing channel. I have recently received another happy bag from TaoBao, and it's got a bunch of stuff in it that I want to show you, explain to you what they're for, and tell you which project they help propel forward. Every single thing in this bag helps a project move forward in some way, which means that I have a bunch of projects that are waiting to be completed and are stuck. So let's unstick them. So here's the bag. Heavy. Now this is what I'm getting from TaoBao these days. It's a big, green, tough bag full of stuff. And the way TaoBao works is you order things from all over China, and then they consolidate it in a city close to Hong Kong, and then they send you in their warehouse. And then they put it all in one of these bags, and then they send you the bag. So I'm finding this a very convenient way to do business. And it's wonderful. It's like a big group of stuff that comes all at once. And it gives me a lot of hope for these projects that I'm working on. So I'll just take the items out individually, but that's what they look like. The bags, that is. Except there's so much stuff in the bag, it fills the entire viewing area. So let's start with a box. Let's see. Here's a box. It's already been opened-ish. Let's make sure it's all the way. No, not open on this side. So they must have maybe inspected it at customs. This happens. And, okay. What is in here? We have, I don't know. Looks like a grill. What is this? Okay, it's a little shelf. Super. Okay, so what we have here is a shelving unit made of plastic. And these little rails look like they pop up, and you can put stuff in there. And I'm thinking that this shelf is actually for, the reason why I got it is I don't know if you remember, but I have a cutting board project where the cutting board gets moldy because when we put it in the sink, the cutting boards make direct contact with the bottom of the sink. So what I thought I would do is get this item here and put it in the sink. I don't need these little silver retainers because what I want it to do is basically act as a standoff in the sink this way. So items can go on top, like a cutting board, for example, and the water that tends to pool in the bottom of the sink can flow or evaporate or whatever, and the cutting boards don't get moldy. So that's what this particular item is for. You had to buy the entire shelf, but it was very inexpensive, and I really only needed one level. So that's what this is for. So let's get this out of the way. We'll do a test fit on the sink later to see if the measurements were right. Here's the next item. Let's have a look at what's in there. Now, I don't know if you know how to open a box without damaging the goods inside. I mean, I think most people intuitively know this, but I may as well tell you. You just use the barest minimum blade. That's the first position, and then you lock it. So then you can cut the box. I don't know if anybody's had the experience of cutting the box and cutting the item inside because it's not been packaged correctly. The other thing is you don't really run the risk of hurting yourself if you should make a mistake cutting and strike yourself. It's not going to really cause a huge injury because it's such a tiny little blade exposure. Not that you should cut towards yourself, but I mean everybody does mostly at one point or another, even though we try always to cut away from ourselves. In your haste, like I just did, you might cut towards yourself, and then who wants to hurt themselves? So let's see what this is. Okay. I'm buying a lot of items from China. China doesn't have the same plug as Hong Kong. Hong Kong has a British plug, and China has a two-blade North American style plug, but at 220 volts, which kills a lot of American electronics. So what I did was I decided to not change the plug on everything, but rather just change the head, maybe, of this thing. Or maybe even just buy a Chinese power bar and change the head on that. So I have lots of receptacle capacity, and I can plug in all the Chinese bought devices without having to constantly change the plugs on them. Just get going. So these weren't very expensive. There are 4 outlets, 1.8 meters in length. And what they do is they help me to use Chinese wired electronics devices without having to constantly change the plug. So the only thing I have to do with these is either buy a power bar and plug them into that, which would give me a lot of electrical receptacle capacity, or just change the head on this to conform to a UK plug style, or just buy an adapter. And I have a couple of adapters, which would be easy to use and wouldn't implicate me having to make any changes whatsoever. Just plug it all together, and then you're off to the races. So that's what these are for. They're intended to help me use Chinese electrical appliances and tools, power tools. Okay, so here's the next little thing. Let's use a pair of scissors on that guy. Okay, I don't want to cut the whatever's in there. So you never know. So very carefully cut the edge. Let's see. What is it? It is batteries and a mini screwdriver for eyeglasses, typically. Now these batteries, what they're for is they're for my calipers. My calipers do have a manual setting, but they also have a electromechanical setting where there's a little, I think basically it's a little rotating knob that's calibrated to show how the distance translates to either millimeters or inches or whatever. It doesn't work without an LR44 battery. So these batteries go into the vernier calipers. Yeah, let's see if I can find them. So what these batteries are for is they go into these calipers. These calipers are useful without a battery. They have a mechanical setting. And I don't know if you know how these calipers work, so I'll just quickly go through the function. They measure 3 things. They measure outside diameter of things, like for example, the battery pack. I could say, oh, okay, this battery pack is this big. They measure the inside measure of something. So for example, if I wanted to know how big the handle was on these scissors, I could use that inside measure to get an idea. And they measure the depth of something. So for example, let's say if I wanted to measure how long from the joint these scissors are, I could use this to get an approximate measure just by grounding it out on some part and then moving this in. And there we go. I get a measure here. So you got inside, outside, and depth. Now these ones I bought a battery because I couldn't wait. The battery goes in here. You just put it in with the positive side facing down, and then you slide, kind of push the battery in a bit with your thumb. You slide it there, zero it. Let's see. You have to close it up, zero it, and now it's good to go. And I find this quite useful. I was measuring bolts on Easy Rider with it just the other day to try to figure out a replacement bolt because somebody had used the wrong bolt of a group of 4. So, I didn't turn it off. And you turn it off just by pushing this red button here. There we go, it's off now. So these batteries for this device. So if you buy this device, at least mine didn't come with a battery, so it's a good idea to also buy batteries or you wait. And who wants to wait? I mean, it's this classic Christmas thing, right? You get your toy, you want to use it right away. You don't want to wait, 3 days or whatever. And also on Christmas Day, when you get your toy, all the stores are closed, so you better buy the batteries. Am I going to have some unhappy people? Here's the next item. Let's have a look and see. You open this. There. There. It looks like a flip up. Let's see if there's something here. Yeah, there we go. And what do we have? We have okay, I know what this is. This is, believe it or not, a little tiny oscilloscope. And what I'm hoping to do with this is do some electrical or electronic experiments. Also, it is in and of itself an interesting little electronics experiment. So this is a very cute little scope. I just bought it because I thought it was really nifty, and I'm trying to make up an excuse for using it. Here we go. So here's a scope with its power supply connector, bayonet connector for probe. Here's the probe. And some instructions. Mostly the instructions are online. So this is called a oscilloscope DIY kit. It comes with all kinds of funky instructions, and we will see whether or not this thing is any fun very shortly. But it looks like it's useful for, I would say, mostly audio and low transmission stuff, maybe under 10. What's its speed? Is it 1 megahertz or more? Probably something along those lines. So I'm very curious about this because it was so inexpensive, and it comes with a little acrylic case, so I get to assemble it and put stuff on there. But I'm just fascinated by something this size to be able to give me some kind of signal tracing capability. It's just fantastic. So that's why I got this. It's going to get used in a bunch of little projects to, I don't know, just see if there's a signal in there. And it's a goofy little electronics experiment thingy. And I like those kind of projects. And I'll try to implicate it in as many projects as I can. Now I've got signal tracing. I have a multimeter. Multimeter will give you what you can call a point measurement capability. So you can measure the voltage of something, let's say, within a time frame, but it doesn't have sensitivity and it doesn't show trending. So that's what oscilloscopes are for. They're for measuring things that change or vary over some time base. And this is so small and so neat, I just couldn't resist buying it to see what the heck this thing is all about. So that's a very fun little project. I better package this right because I've opened it. And it doesn't, I'll put it in a Ziploc. That way it won't fall all over. Let's get myself a Ziploc of the right size. This one seems about right. Nope, it's a bit too small. So we'll go with the size. Put everything in one place so it doesn't get, there's many little parts in this kit, and I don't want to lose those little bits. There we go. Okay, so we just put this guy to the side now. So that was a lot of fun. Looking forward to using that. Of course, I have to manufacture an excuse to buy that thing. I mean, it's just a toy, really. What's next? Well, this feels heavy. What is it? Okay. It's quite full. Just cut the end off there. Okay. I know, I need this so bad. This is... Ooh, it's not coming. Okay, let's just open it up a little bit more. This is a set of 2 new socket handles. And the reason why I got them is, I think I'm going to show you why. Now the reason why I got these sockets is because the handle that came in this set is not that great, and it keeps falling into the center position where it's neither turning left nor turning right. Now some of you may remember I did an entire video on this socket set. They're extremely inexpensive, so I got it to get started with the channel. It's like one of the first things I bought, and it's generally speaking worked well. I mean, I bought it for a couple of things. I needed to get started with sockets in general, and it came with a spark plug socket, only to find out it's the wrong size for Easy Rider and therefore useless to my needs. But I got all the sockets. It's got imperial and metric sizes, an extension, a reducer. It's got fairly big sockets, but the weak link, listen to that, right? The weak link is this. This is a terrible piece of kit. It's just horrible. I mean, in a pinch, yeah, okay, but it's so loose and rattly and awful. And what happens is this little setting here, which you flick one way or the other way, gets lost in the middle. And then this handle ends up freewheeling. Of course, I can't get it to get lost now. Now that you can somehow when you're using it, right? It'll just fall. Yeah, here we go. See? What's up with that? That's just no good. So I just got frustrated with it and said, no, I'll just go onto TaoBao and get myself a proper ratchet. This is a 72 tooth ratchet, so which means it's got a very fine turning. You can if you just have a little bit of space, you can get a little bit of right to move that socket. So I'm very pleased with it. Oh God, I hate stickers. I'll take it off later. It's got a comfort grip, and it's a nice little unit, so I'm pretty happy. And I got a little guy because I have the big ratchet with the torque wrenches. I've got a 1-inch or 3/4 inch drive, but this is for the little tiny sockets like this, right? So I don't have to use a reducer if I don't want to, and it's got equally fine. So it's for like little tiny places. And there's a set of 3. I didn't get the big one because I don't anticipate using the big one a lot, but I use this size a lot. And this size, I'm finding that with the 8mm, 9mm, they're in there. And swapping out the reducer and the extender and all that stuff, it was becoming a little annoying. So what I'll do is just use these 2 as my socket handles. They're much, much, much higher quality than this, which I'll keep around. I mean, I think eventually what I'll probably do is I'll end up throwing this entire kit in the car just in case, maybe, or giving it to somebody once I've upgraded, but I wanted to get going, so that's why I bought the sort of junior starter set, but I'm slowly upgrading as I'm discovering which tools just aren't up to it. So I'd say this is okay to get started, but it's not okay once you start doing things a little more seriously, a little more frequently, or if you're in a challenging situation, as I am often with Easy Rider because it's so rusty and corroded and not maintained. So that's what those handles are for. Looking forward to using them. They are, of course, much higher quality. I should tell you that the cost of these 2 handles is equal to probably the cost of maybe one of the handles is as costly as the entire set. So you can think about it as I bought all the sockets for some unit of money, and then I bought high quality handles for the same unit of money, and I have this thing which I need to put in. Oops. as a sort of a fallback. So if I want a third ratchet handle, I have it. So I can load, at least Honda's, it seems to be all 10 millimeter, 8 millimeter, 16 millimeter. So that's what. So I now have 3 ratchet handles, or socket set handles. Very happy about that. Let's put this away. Okay.
Well, that's it for part 1. The audio signal on my microphone died at this point. So what I'm going to have to do is do a voiceover on the rest of the video, which I'll do in the next little while and post as soon as I can. Until then, take care and keep making. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please consider subscribing, giving me a like, and leaving me a comment. I really enjoy making these videos, and I want to know from you how I can make them better. The whole point of these videos is to demonstrate that if I can do something, you can do it too. Well, that's it for now. So long, and remember, keep making.